Um, I'm recording this, by the way, so we can publish. Not good at handstands. Can't do really a flip or a backflip off a diving board. Um, I can do a somersault.
Hmm.
I can do a headstand.
There you go.
So I go to yoga and I can't do any of the moves, but I can do the headstand, so people kind of respect me a little bit when I leave.
That's important.
Yeah. So, hey, I have a 9:30, so we'll have to make this kind of quick,
Sure.
but so we're just gonna get right into it. Is that
Yeah.
fine?
Yeah.
You're probably used to anything
Yeah.
at this point in your life.
Pretty used to it. Yeah.
So, welcome, listeners, to another episode of Sales Intersection, the intersection of money and meaning, where my guests and I discuss how we derive meaning from sales in the business world and contribute to the positive evolution of both. And perfect guest today for doing that, with his experience, his knowledge, and all his efforts these days, and his soothing voice. Lucas Root. Lucas is an accomplished speaker, entrepreneur, business success mentor with over 19 years of experience across banking, technology, investments, health and wellness, athletics, and interactive media. Lucas specializes in speaking to entrepreneurs and business owners on getting their strategy on track for success and massive growth. Thank you for being here today, Lucas. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Eric.
And folks, so you don't know, Lucas and I have met. I don't know if we're at the point to say several times, but I always leave our conversations feeling relaxed and at peace, and like I want to, start a meditation practice.
It's the voice,
So,
isn't
Lucas, real quick, just to familiarize my listeners, um, not the about me on your website, not the about me on your LinkedIn. You're meeting someone that, like me, I'm starting my second business. I'm going through kind of like the funding stage, finishing up my business plan. Um, it's a virtual legion type business. I'm navigating, but I needed a lot of help through my network and through consultants. I approached you at a conference or some kind of COVID only event, and or not COVID only, but
it?
COVID safe event, and I say, Lucas, I've heard a little bit about you. Here's the context of where I am. Uh, what can you give me a little background of what you do, and then contextualize it for me?
Of course. And so last I checked, we still can't catch COVID through the computer. So if it's a COVID safe event, it's probably a Zoom
There's
event.
there's a new variant.
There's a new variant. Oh, uh-oh. Well then,
Zoom's working on it. The next
we better
version.
take a step back. So maybe we can catch it through Zoom, but is your podcast safe?
My podcast it's
Podcast is
actually
safe.
one of the three podcasts that are safe.
But not the others. Just those
Not
three.
not the others. That's why I'm getting a lot of guests these days.
As it should be. Um, cool. So the quick overview about me, I work with brands who don't execute. And what that means is I run my own consulting company.
How do you identify brands that don't execute? Is there a search on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Yeah. Just try typing in brands who don't execute. They're like me.
Yeah.
Um,
How
uh,
do you seriously, how do you identify, your prospecting list? How do you know they're not executing?
yep. Um, all joking aside, I think most people are pretty familiar with the big brands who don't execute. Apple is the shining example. Apple is a really powerful brand, and all they want to do is focus on building their internal core competencies and driving their message out. Everything else that they do is 100% outsourced. So they don't do any manufacturing. All they do is their design work, and somebody else does the manufacturing, somebody else does the supply chain, somebody else does their sales even, right?
Is that right?
Apple's sold through, your Verizon or AT&T store. Apple's sold through Best Buy. Apple's sold through Amazon. You certainly can go to their flagship stores, which they have only a few, and the reason they have only a few is because they don't like doing their own execution.
Unless you go to China, then there's plenty of Apple stores. Um, but I have some friends that used to do sales at Apple, so they must have changed that model up at some point. I mean, I
Well,
know. Yeah.
they'll do the distributor sales.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't, I mean, there are some things that you simply can't get away from, and the distributor model is an example of that. You have to have distributor salespeople that manage those relationships and make sure that those relationships, get taken care of, and et cetera. But um, 95% of the execution that needs to happen for the Apple company to succeed, it happens as a vendor relationship. It happens outsourced. So they're
Interesting.
they're a perfect example of someone with whom I would partner. And on the tail end of that, my largest, best known client, and the one that I've been working with for the longest, is the Pokemon Company, and they are exactly the same in the respect that they want to focus 100% on design, creation of their storylines, and then pass that off to the people who do the execution for them. So they have licensees that do their products, and they have, obviously their distributors are internal, just like Apple. But as soon as it gets into the hands of the distributor, it's all 100% outsourced. They don't do their supply chain. Um, it is exactly the business model that I work with.
So I guess my example then isn't in your wheelhouse. You'd probably work with maybe some bigger. Hopefully, it wouldn't be in your top 10. I wouldn't be on your client slide.
Um,
Um, but you go for bigger brands.
I work with both big brands and small brands. The smallest company that I work with is $2 million annually. Um, Still probably a little bit bigger than you, Eric, but not for long. I mean, you're going to be growing quick.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. And so, do you approach them, or do they? At this point, do you have enough word of mouth going? I mean, Apple calls Lucas,
Apple
or
calls Lucas.
okay, at the point when Apple's didn't call Lucas, what was your strategy for new customer acquisition?
Yeah, great question. Everybody asks that. Everybody should ask that. It's one of the most important questions you need to have. Um, you know, what I've started to find, and I really hope this doesn't put my thumb in your eye on this. What I've started to
Put it in my eye.
find, yeah, social selling is the absolute most powerful tool that anybody can have. What is social selling? Well, it's sort of a version of what people are calling networking. So go to where your customer is hanging out, figure out who your customer is, go to where your customer is hanging out, make friends, be friendly, provide value. It doesn't necessarily have to be the service that you provide, but provide value. And do that over and over and over again until the people who are your customer know, like, and trust you. And then when they're ready to buy something, they'll buy it from you first because they know, like, and trust you.
So and there's different kinds of social selling, and a little background. When I started this podcast, um, genuinely I had no aggressive monetization plan,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really because I was going to run away from sales, or I was going to fight the good fight and try to bring some more meaning, and contribute to the positive evolution of it. And so luckily it became a big success. Forbes ranked it top 20 overnight. I got a lot more followers, and trying to convert those eyeballs to clients currently. But in my example, it was a give ask scenario. And do you I should probably be diversified, but instead of putting all my eggs in the podcast basket. But do you recommend a top three kind of like online communities that are niche enough for your customers? Obviously, you want to be as close to your customers as possible, but diversify, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you got to have at least two. And if you can develop a third pipeline, that's even better. But you got to have at least two, because the world changes so fast right now that if you're 100% focused on only one pipeline, something's going to change and it's going to mess up your pipeline, and all of a sudden you're going to be dried up and you didn't see it coming.
What are your
Um,
other two pipelines?
Example: when I first started, my pipeline was conferences. Now, imagine somebody kicking off their pipeline in conferences in 2019. I imagine I'm telling a story that many people have actually lived through. They spent all of 2019 investing in, the conferences pipeline, investing in relationships and showing up and spending money and time. All of a sudden, 2020 rolls around and they're stuck. They have an enormous outlay of time and effort and money in order to be able to build that pipeline, and they're done. They've got no option.
When they went digital.
Yeah. Um, Now I started a few years before that. I don't really want to date myself, but fortunately, the
31,
relationships that I
32.
needed to build were already in pretty good shape by the time 2020 rolled around. But if I had been starting in 2019, I might have had to go back to full-time work. I might have had to go back to getting a paycheck from somebody else. Um,
So, where did you adapt and have to take some courses and read some books, or are you naturally just savvy digitally at whatever your other two pipelines are?
I am savvy digitally, partly because I accidentally did the adaptation work years before. I fancied myself a pretty good cook, and I decided to launch myself as an online chef in the early 2010s, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. If you go search me, you'll find books with my name on them. I stopped doing that. Uh,
That's a great line. I wish I could say. I wish I could say that. If
yeah,
you if you go to a bookstore, you'll find books with my name on it.
yeah.
I haven't ever been able to say that. Go ahead.
And part of that experience taught me a huge amount about building a digital presence. And so when 2020 rolled around, and truly my physical pipelines dried up for bringing in consulting clients and you know building my businesses and helping the people that I work with. I had that background that I was able to roll back on, and I was pretty quick about it because, again, I've been through that. I'd already built a digital presence before. But even now, if you go back and look at my digital presence in 2019, I had 2,000 Instagram followers and uh, 500 LinkedIn followers. I wasn't quite starting from scratch, but I certainly was nowhere like I am now. I had to hustle in 2020, 2021 to rebuild those pipelines.
Do you think part of it is? I mean, I'm what I'm seeing, and it is refreshing, or maybe it's because it's how I've customized my feed on LinkedIn and other uh, social media channels. Is just to have the people that are putting out content that I value instead of the spam. But what I'm seeing is the more genuine, the closer to a journalesque type post that you post is more sincere, more genuine, more authentic, the better. And you kind of come across as a guy that, um, you know, I I I would try I trust you quickly. I feel like you probably gain trustworthiness fairly quickly. And is that
It's
just
the voice
natural?
again, right?
It's well, yeah. Did you take a voice class or
No, I
no?
wish.
Okay, I would take the same class if
If
it did.
if I was going to take a voice class, it would be an accents class, because I think the British accents are the coolest accents ever, and I'm horrible at it, and I wish I wasn't.
Not an Aussie one.
I mean, sure. And New Zealand accent is great to listen to. I
Yeah.
I still personally like the British accent better, but yeah, I mean, Those two. South African,
Okay.
awesome.
I got my last vacation was South Africa, and it's there's a lot of different accents because there's like 19 languages spoken there. But anyway, um, so um, can we use my example, or should we use another example? I want to be relevant here.
Um, so
Well,
uh,
let me say this. My digital presence is great with the podcast, but I'll admit I'm struggling with engagement and my presence in other channels, and I'm not. It doesn't keep me up at night, but what's the first step you take to if you're in my shoes? I mean, I feel like I'm a you know honest guy. I kind of wear my feelings on my sleeve. I say what's on my mind, but maybe I'm doing something wrong. Are there other strategies than just being genuine and dropping some actionable insights?
yes. For better or worse, bikinis sell really well. Almost no matter what you post. If you post it with a bikini picture, it's going to go really well. Um, I'm not saying that, Riley. If you're a man, you can do the same.
We're
Not
going back to the
necessarily.
2019 conference zone where they paid two girls to wear bikinis to get people to come to the booth.
It's true. It's still true. It's still a thing. If you want to grow fast, post pictures of food and bikinis. I don't post either. Um,
Did you say
next,
food and bikinis?
food and bikinis.
But separate, not like brownies with a bikini on it.
Yes, that was going to be my next point. So, food and bikinis, like sex sells, it has always sold. Next, humor.
Interesting.
Humor sells amazingly well. If you are funny, you're going to do well. So, a brownie with a bikini on it will actually do really well. A man wearing a bikini will do really well.
Okay, watch my next
Bookkeeping.
post. You're gonna see some bikinis.
However, and this is a really big caveat, if your audience is not used to the idea of you trying to sell them through sex or humor, they may be turned off and start walking away from you.
And say Eric's trying. Obviously, he's
Yes.
trying to build a brand.
Yep.
Um, I see. And so, what about do you pay attention a lot to the newest January 2022 LinkedIn algorithm that you
Mhm.
have to? So,
I
what
pay
I
a ton
just
of attention,
read
more than is
was
healthy.
okay. Um, Tell me if these are kind of like top five, but an engaging conversation. The more it's likes and emojis are great, but no comments, no replies to those comments, no engaging conversation in there is a if you do have that, that's a huge plus.
Hmm. Yes.
I've heard before you post, if you support a lot of other posts and contribute a lot of replies to posts, that's another big helper.
It's true. It's like buying attention, but instead of buying it with dollars, you're buying it with your own attention, i.e., I'm going to give you some attention. Why don't you give me some back? And people do respond to that.
Okay, okay. So, unfortunately, today's podcast has to be short. We still have some time, but so you're not executing. Um, I what are you usually hearing in that first kind of discovery meeting? Is it in terms of priorities? Is it social media? Is social selling? Is that a top three?
My smaller clients almost invariably want help with money. So they're looking for CFO services, bookkeeping. They're trying to find ways to outsource the way that they manage money and marketing and all of the pieces of marketing. So social selling, building their presence, uh, building the landing for their presence, right? So websites and um, their outreach and all of that. So my smaller clients all want that. My larger clients and I think this is wise, typically want those things to be in-house. They want to manage their money and their marketing in-house, and they want everything else to be outsourced. It's a very funny shift that happens somewhere between 10 and $50 million in revenue, where people are like, I can outsource all this stuff that I used to think I have to do myself, but I really want to control this stuff that I used to try to outsource.
So what's your specialty? Why it comes down to three people they're going to choose, and why do they choose Lucas?
Yeah. Um, Typically, people hire me to build strategies for them, and that's something you can't in-house ever. For better or worse, you can't see the way that the business is interacting with the world from inside the business. You have to have an outsourced person to do that. So
It's an
build
echo chamber,
it
and
is
and yeah.
it is 100%. So build strategies for them, and I have a handful of clients for whom that's all I do. I look at what they do, I look at how they're doing, I pay attention to it throughout the year, and then I tell them, this is where you're headed, this is how you're interacting with the market. Here are the things that I would pay attention to. Good luck.
And how long does your average engagement last with a partner?
For that type of client where all I do is strategy, typically it's something like 5 hours a month, and it lasts for years.
Huh.
Yeah.
And what would you say is one innately unique about you, and two something that you've learned along the way that really differentiates you?
uh Awesome question, thank you. um my the woman who works for me, the top of the business, she's been with me for 7 years. She said to me one day, Lucas, the thing that makes you special, when people are walking down the street, they can see the light right in front of them, and they know whether or not they're going to make it through that light, or not. She's like, you don't just see three lights or four lights ahead, you also know how to change the walking speed without necessarily even telling anyone, so that we can just keep walking through this light and the next one and the one after that without ever having to interact with the lights at all, because they always turn green just when we arrive. She's like, it's amazing. That's not something I learned. I wish I could tell you there was a course on it. I have no idea how I got good at it. One thing that I learned along the way, and this has been a huge realization for me, clients don't want to hire me for anything other than what they want to hire me for. It's a little weird to hear. So if they brought me in to help them out with strategy, all they want is strategy. They don't want me to help them with execution. If they brought me in to help them with execution, all they want is that piece of what they hired me for. They're not interested in my strategy advice.
So don't come in and try to upsell.
Don't try to upsell. That's exactly right. Now, what that has freed me up to do is build really valuable partnerships with somebody like you, where I'll go to a client, they'll hire me for whatever they're hiring me for, strategy, and I'll say, here's what's going on, here's what you need to look out for. I have a partner that I work with that I can recommend for this thing that you guys have a weakness in. Let me know if you want to talk to them. And I used to try to say, I'm good at this, hire me for that as well. And they'd be like, no, 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 no. And I've learned that's not the conversation to have. Instead, I can recommend somebody. Let me know if you want to talk to them. And that's yes, 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 yes.
And in turn, recommending that person, you probably get more business from it because they're going to recommend you, right?
Full circle, social selling.
So full circle. And then you said you had a third pipeline.
Yep. So online, social selling. And then my third pipeline is, and this is one that your listeners are going to absolutely love, I hope. Do the things that you personally love to do.
I love that.
And as you said, carry yourself on your sleeve. Don't hide who you are. Don't hide what you do. Show up, be you, love what you're doing. And people are going to be magnetically attracted to you because you love what you're doing.
Is there a second place, social network, or maybe you have a first place, other than LinkedIn that you feel is generating? What is it? Is it secret, or can you talk about it?
I have no problem talking about it at all. Customers hide in weird places. I mean that in the most wonderful place way. Most of my business comes from Instagram, and there's a reason for that. The Pokemon Company is my largest client. I'm allowed to use their name as a client, and their audience is on Instagram. So I get huge, powerful traction because of the name, the Pokemon Company, on Instagram. And my clients find me better on Instagram than they do on LinkedIn.
So right now, do you have more clients than you know what to deal with? Are you having to say no to clients?
I I I do say no to some kinds of engagements now, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so 2022, what's the big goal other than losing 10 pounds and brushing your teeth 2 times a day?
I brush my teeth once a day. I have for years. I'm probably not going to get to twice a day.
You floss?
I do floss, of course.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I'm also pretty low sugar. It's funny that we're talking about this. Um, I find that people who are pretty low sugar are pretty comfortable brushing their teeth once a day, and people that are not low sugar find that they want to brush their teeth more than once a day.
What about smoothies though? I have a smoothie in the morning. Does that count as sugar?
I would. It
Okay.
it sort of depends on what you put in it. I mean, people think of like bulletproof coffee as a smoothie, which isn't wrong. I guess it's kind of a smoothie, and there's no sugar in that.
So you just wake up and munch on kale.
Yeah, of course.
All
Back
right.
right out of
So
the garden.
Finishing up here, just some quick draw McGraw questions. Mentors come to mind.
hmm Um, I work with a couple of really cool people. One of them, you've had him on the call. Your listeners will be familiar with him. Mitchell Levy.
Yep, worked with Mitchell several times.
He's a great guy. He and I speak at least once a week and probably more. And I think that the role that he play he's not a paid mentor, but the role that he plays in my life is invaluable.
That's great. He's becoming a mentor to me as well. 10
Yeah.
years old, Lucas Root asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" What would you answer?
Soccer player.
Soccer player. What
Soccer player.
position?
Yeah, but at 9 years old, it was baseball player.
Okay, so it was sports for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, it was sports for a while. It changed when I was in late high school, early college. I grew up playing mostly soccer and ski racing. And I grew up in northern Vermont. A lot of ski racers in northern Vermont actually do quite well because
Did you ever do the big jump thing?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks
Um,
scary.
so ski racing, a lot of my friends actually made it onto the U.S. ski team. They were far better than me, and that was okay with me. But what I saw was, they were theoretically living their dream, and it had become a job to them. None of them regret doing it, but I was watching them work for a living in something that to me was fun and exciting and delightful. And I didn't want that to change. I didn't want sports to stop being fun and exciting and delightful. So I stopped pursuing sports as what I wanted to be when I grew up.
I got you. Okay, well, I do have a hard stop right now. Do you want to plug anything? Say anything to my audience before we head out?
Um, Click the subscribe button and listen to Eric more often because he's awesome. And
Thank you,
believe it or
Lucas.
not, you didn't pay me to say that.
I appreciate that. I was looking forward to today's conversation, and I'm feeling better about my day leaving it, just as
Thank you.
expected.
Yeah.
So enjoy your day. I'm gonna have this edited, and it'll be up in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. This was
Enjoy
great.
your day.
Cheers.
All right, cheers.